Hello everybody, welcome back to From Rhythm to Algorithm. We continue on with our derivation. What is sensorality? What is a sensor? Looking to prove a natural definition by direct iteration. Again, some sort of linguistic containment. We have some sort of conceptualization that is undeniable, that produces some amount of linguistics. Letters, a word, a sentence structure, which we can derive sensorality is, and it will produce a natural definition. Again, all words are naturally defined. A definition is a sufficient differentiation from it is what it is. You go into a conversation or any natural logical progression, you'll hear it all the time. It is what it is the most general structured form of language. It's the form of all language. And so we're just working through our linguistic analysis, right? You can see the word sensor spelled out in everyday use. Specifically to last episode, is a sensor a chip? But we see a lot of fundamental use naturally for a sensor in business, in technology, in computation, in engineering and technology in general. So again, just looking to progress through our analysis to arrive at what is a sensor. Last episode, we talked about, again, this consolidation. All physical systems tend to optimal efficiency, including language, or specifically language. And so we had the stress energy tensor, and then logically expanded what is stress, what is energy, and what is tension in relation to one another, as presented by Albert Einstein's conceptualization. And so just progressing through our steps, we have again encapsulated the entire ontological progression. And now we're just looking for the right conceptualization to reduce, to derive, to finalize this definition. So we move along. A lot of linguistic, logical, again, these word forms, frankly, the past several hundred, or 150-ish, I don't know. So a note on the colors, again, a lot of yellow and a lot of purple. Purple is specifically to the axiomatization of what is sensorality with direct physical intuition, because again, those are the ones you can appreciate the most. Overall, I'm just emphasizing the differentiation because, again, you use the same words, you use the same letters, you use the same identities, relationships, and just emphasizing this progression. Yellow is, again, part of an axiomatic derivation. Purple, I think, is going to be like the final changing thing, but it's really just emphasizing progression because these are all theorems. I've already validated this analytical process. So even back when we had blue letters, which still, what is sensorality is, conceptually in blue letters. It's not defined yet. But once you validate the overall analytical process, everything in there would still be contained or represented as a theorem. But presenting this as novel can be, considering the first step was speciality is special with an ITY, the natural tendency to differentiate for sexual antagonism. And if you type that into Google right now, it will just say speciality is a form of special. Right? So we've already produced a natural definition. We're just reiterating the same process. And so the ones in purple, again, have direct physical intuition and just showing you this overall progression. There's a lot of derivation. You've never seen a derivation even close to this scale. And so the yellow steps would, again, for sure, if you were going to re-axiomatize, or for some reason I didn't finish sensorality, you would have to hit those steps letter by letter, syllable by syllable, in that order. Same, frankly, with like the green ones probably, but just, again, blue letters kind of like we're just kind of in, frankly, like lemmas. Again, if I had not previously validated this analytical process. The green ones, it's when we've built this enough logical context to prove things. And then yellow is specific to the axiomatization of sensorality. And then the purple is the physical intuition, the emotion and motion relationship of sensorality with an S and sensorality with a C, trying to show you, again, this overall progression of myself personally as we get closer to the final reduction, which frankly should be imminent, but we continue on. My rights continue to be violated, just moving through our analysis. So sensorality is sentorality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Again, that is a direct iteration of tensor. And so in the previous episode, I said the second S, it's the first S, it doesn't matter. Because in my mind, or in that episode, you can see, I'm literally thinking about switching the elementality of the S's in sensorality, but they're both S's. And so it doesn't really matter. Again, I'm just showing you every single step. And if this process was well known, Again, it's rigorous mathematics, it's complete. And so this is like 1 + 1 = 2, genuinely, in terms of how consistent and how progressive and direct the next steps are. But centrality, sentorality, again, a direct iteration of tensorality, a direct conceptual linguistic containment of what is a tensor. Centality is centality. So now again, another chunk of this word family that's very obvious to see. Sense, scent, like a sense of smell. Sensodorality has scent or senses scent, but just S-C-E-N-T. And so again, it's clearly, the overall conceptual progression is what really matters. And it's very easy to see different forms of the linguistic word family of censorship and be like, when do we get to this word? When do we get to that word? Scent being one of them. Sensodorability is scentability. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is sensibility. Natural definition, direct iteration. Spelling will be on your screen, not sensibility, but like scent, sensibility. Then we iterate that T back to an S. Sensibility is sensiable. Like when we generalized sense, sensuality, take off the E, add the I-A-L-I-T-Y, sensuality, but sensiability. So again, this last time we had this dichotomy of chip and ship. Previously we've had the dichotomy of sight and sight, but again, just the C and S iteration. So some theorems came to mind after that dichotomy, because again, censorship, our syllables are irreducible units of words. We have to get our concepts in the right order. That will give us the motivation to put our syllables in the right order. But this elementality, this irreducibility applies to syllables. And then previously we've referenced a matrice. Like we have 2 by 2 matrices of syllables. So geometrically, again, the elementality of the last episode, that's why I kind of wrote these theorems, again, giving you the motivation. Sensorality is a ship site. Sensorality is a chip site. Sensorality cites ships. And again, this resolution of light and light, L-I-G-H-T, L-I-T-E, right, right, R-I-T-E, R-I-G-H-T, site, site, S-I-T-E, C-I-T-E. It's all, again, just general form of differentiation demonstrated by our final reduction. Because again, this final completion step shows all of these analytical tools in one little thing. But it's no different than any of these other steps. What is sight, S-I-T-E, to sight, S-I-G-H-T? So, right, because if you were going to say sensorality cites ships, again, the spelling on your screen was a C, but if you wanted to cite a ship with an S, it doesn't really make any sense. Again, just showing you and emphasizing the steps. Sensorality is a stress sensor. Natural definition, direct iteration. Longevity is longevitality. Just generalizing longevity, longevitality, that produces vitality. Longevity is vitality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is vitality. What is gravity to vitality? What is gravity to longevity? Is gravity vital? Again, direct iterations of the syllability. Vital is grave. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is a set amount of steps. So again, we have this definition of rhythm now, this overall differentiation, rhythm, vibration. A cycle that does work, or a cycle that maximizes work, is rhythmic. A cycle that doesn't do work, something that does not move, we've made this differentiation, is vibration. Our empirical reality, everything is moving. When you try to limit that movement, you get a vibration. That vibration pushing up against a surface area produces a pressure. Temperature is vibration. Pressure is proportional to temperature. But we have this definition of rhythm, again emphasizing the linguistic use of the word step, which is an iteration of set. And then last time we went to the word segment for our overall general theories of mathematics, showing this progression, but emphasizing a set amount of steps. Iterating by identity, A step is a set. Sensorality is a set amount of steps. A rhythm is a set amount of steps. When you form a rhythm, you try to minimize the amount of steps, and it's finite, it is limited, it is set. Natural definition, direct iteration. Fundamental theorem of geometry, a segment is a leg. We went from a line to a line segment to just segmentation, segmentality, but another conceptual, logical, empirical use, right? The legs of a triangle. What's the sides of a triangle that aren't a hypotenuse? The legs. And so a line segment is a leg, right? He's on the last leg of the race, right? Or the legs of a triangle. I have two examples I have. What is a leg to a hypotenuse? What is immeasurability to infinitesimality? So again, emphasizing this, infinitesimality is probably like the most furthest thing away from formalization in mathematics that is out there, because it's the inverse to infinity, which again is not understood. It's the conceptualization and understanding. How big is big? The actual physical empirical world. We have no idea. Very big. We're in a local locality. It's like a sphere. Momentum is local. Movement exists. But emphasizing from the last episode, infinitesimality is the process of trying to take something down to its fundamental limit, to the small side, to the smaller. And so that process of infinitesimality, trying to divide, is limited by irreducibility. And so then we have physical limitation, which is immeasurability. And so when we talked about the infinitesimality limit, the geometric presentation last episode, you take an n polygon, the amount of sides, you take that limit to infinity. That volume between the discrete side of that inscribed polygon to the circle, that area or that volume is immeasurability. When you try to divide something down to the smallest it can be, that process is infinitesimality, because it's the inverse to infinity, which is the awareness that information just grows. Then we have a limit, it can only grow at a certain rate at the smallest level, the inverse of the speed of light, and the maximum any information transfer can occur is the speed of light. And so infinitesimality is this process of trying to divide something or trying to take something as small as it can be or as slow as it can go. And you have this irreducibility limit at the low end, a lower bound. And then immeasurability is just the data you can't interact with, and that's what we're talking about kind of with, I don't even want to bring up the double slit experiment again, but just immeasurability is the reason, right, why people say there's the electron's a point particle. It's just that internal dynamic is immeasurable. We don't have enough momentum, not energy, to probe these dynamics that are stabilized, where again, all measurement is a physical interaction. So in the same way, you can't scratch diamond with a kitchen knife, no matter how hard you try, because it's an atomic limit, right? Immeasurability is just the total conceptualizations of data and specificity that you can't, or precision that you can't access because of literal physical interaction is measurement. And so immeasurability, infinitesimality, and irreducibility. Immeasurability and irreducibility are pretty well understood. Infinitesimality, you've never seen the word. No one in mathematics has understood what infinity really is, and it's the inverse of infinity. But again, this lower bound is what is limited and what is provable. How big is unknown. And so that is why we use infinitesimality profoundly more than infinity. But wanted to spend some time there because you've never even seen that before anywhere. Immeasurable is imperceptible. The derivative of zero does not exist. So again, you have a function, take down a power, subtract a power. You have a scalar, it just becomes zero. But conceptually, you can't take the derivative of nothing, right? If I have physical derivation, if I have my notebook, I can derive an atom. I can physically take an atom away. Granted, I have the experimental capacity, right? But if you have nothing, there's nothing to derive from that. The derivative of zero is nothing. Or you can't even take a derivative of zero. Are series continuous? Are sequences continuous? Again, what is this dichotomy of series and sequence? We've hit it a bunch. We've conjectured its time. We've conjectured its completion. We've conjectured its continuous. But again, there's infinitely many things that are true that we can't prove, infinitely many things that are undecidable that we can't even structure questions around. And so just emphasizing that, I don't know if we've resolved series versus sequence. That's a meaningful question, but it's certainly a very poignant, fundamental, logical, mathematical dichotomy. Sensorality mediates direct iteration. Sensorality is immediate. What is sensation to mediation? What is media to mediation? Sensorality is mediality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is remediality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is equilibrium symmetric? What is a metric to a geodesic? What is a geode to a geodesic? Are geodesics geometric? Emphasizing the iteration, the direct iteration of the elementality, the spacing slots filled with different letters. Because again, you can have two letters that has the same elementality as one letter, which is like a whole class or set of different letters. Sensorality is a geode. Natural definition, direct iteration, OD, ode, geode. Is sensation symmetric? Is circularity symmetric? Are circles symmetric? Because again, overall, empirically, that's asymmetry. Speciality is everything is unique. Symmetry doesn't exist is the biggest, again, physical to mathematical reality that's just immediately wrong in the history of physics. What is symmetry to differentiation? Fundamental theorem of geometry, symmetricality is indistinguishability. Symmetricality is undifferentiated. So that's a big connection, right? If it's symmetric, what are you really saying? Something is symmetric over the x-axis, over the y-axis, right? When you say it's chirality, then we say you look in the mirror, it doesn't have mirror symmetry. Right? Symmetry is indistinguishable. Symmetry is undifferentiated. Again, connecting meaningful logical words directly. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is undifferentiated. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is indistinguishability. Natural definition, direct iteration. Again, the syllability of sensorality makes this fundamental differentiation. Are sensors symmetric? Is entropy symmetric? Is disorder asymmetric? Again, what is order to symmetry? What is symmetry to organizationality? Is organized symmetric? Is organization symmetric? What is ordinality to organizationality? Emphasizing that D to G iteration. Sensorality is organizationality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is organizing agonizing? Does sensation organize? Is sensing organizing? Organs sense. Direct iteration. Sensorality is a sense organ. Sensorality is organality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Now we just add sense, sensorality. Sensorality is sense organality. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is sensodorality to sense organality? An organ to odor. Packaged up in our, again, getting to our common denominator, our common syllability. Sensorality is organ odor. Natural definition, direct iteration. Sensorality is an organ donor. Natural definition, direct iteration. Again, we're producing the form of logic, the form of language. We have a direct sensorality is organ odor. What is that? Sensorality is an organ donor. And you can feel that elementality progression, and it's a well-defined phrasing, because again, we're utilizing this consolidation of sentience, of consensus, what everybody says. People running around talking about physical systems tending to optimum efficiency. They consolidate most of the right words, languages like horseshoes and hand grenades, and it just packages it up all kind of next to each other. But again, we've introduced this iteration completely by one syllable, sensorality, sensodorality, that contains it linguistically and conceptually. So we have this OD syllability we've been emphasizing. And from donor, right, odor, donor, direct iteration. Sensorality is donorality. Natural definition, direct iteration, and it's already well defined, donation. Donating gives. What is ignorality to donorality? Direct iteration. Sensorality is donality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Once again, just taking a chunk of the syllability from the word, but from the word that feels relevant. Ignorality to donorality. Again, ignorality is just orality with an ing iterated at the front. Donor is well defined, and then this OD, now we have donor, DO, plus another letter, N. Sensorality is donality. What is a sensor to a donor? What is filtration to distinguishability? How do filters distinguish? Are reflections symmetric? Is filtration reflection? Does filtration sort? What is dimensionality to symmetricality? Again, dimension, spontaneity, symmetry, things that don't exist. Are dimensions symmetric? What is synchronicity to symmetricality? Right, to synchronize, to symmetry have a role to synchronization. Is symmetry synchronous? Is synchronicity symmetric? Is sensation synchronous? What is symmetry to consistency? Right, symmetry is indistinguishable. If it's completely consistent, is it distinguishable? What is symmetricality to reciprocality? What is synergeticality to symmetricality? Is symmetry synergetic? Is synergy symmetric? Synergy reciprocates. Direct iteration. Is reciprocity mutual? Sensorality is mutuality. Is closure mutual? What is mutuality to melodicality? Sensorality is methodologicality. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is melody musical? Is music rhythmic? Does gluttony binge? What is gluttony to agony? Gluttony is excessive. Natural definition. What is gluttony to glory? What is gluttony to gravity? Is gravitic derivative? Direct iteration. Yes, all force is derivative from pressure. Sensorality is graviticality. Natural definition, direct iteration. What is vitality to graviticality? So that's another interesting word form from gravity, gravitic. Just emphasizing that, nothing else to say. Is perspective prospective, like prospective? Is respect prospective? What is perspective to prospective? Sensorality is a respectful perspective. Natural definition, direct iteration. Is respect introspective? What is introspection to awareness? What is a donor to a sponsor? Sensorality donates sponsorship. Direct iteration. Sensorality sponsors donor. Direct iteration. Again, so now we have explicit containment. Sensorality contained with sensodorality, and then odor directly contained in donor. So that's anytime you think that progression, when you think all of that progression, we're out the word donor now. It's still just one fundamental differentiation, but same thing, well, directly containment, again, of these, donor has the same letters of odor plus N. but then the same type of elementality, not as direct, but sensor and sponsor. Definitely the same syllables, 2 syllables, but then it has sensor has an E and sponsor has an O. Sensorality is the center of a ship. Sensorality is a door sponsor. Again, we just have to get the syllability in the right order and it will be directly literal. Language is literal. We can't break that at any point. We just need the concepts in the right place. Sensorality is the ontology of odor. Natural definition, direct iteration. A sponsorship is an endorsement. What is endorsement to endearment? What is sponsorship to censorship? Direct iteration, again, the syllabilities, the letters are getting very close, but censorship, sponsorship. That one's spelled with an S. We get back to the C. Again, censorship with a C contains censor with an S. It's some sort of fundamental differentiation. Our conceptualization has to be correct, and then the linguistic differentiation, the separation of the letters, has to be some form of sensorality already. That's what we're doing. This whole process, 480 almost videos, is the linguistic implications. Right? This is the proliferation at its minimum. 7 years of continuous refinement. When we're building and when we're reducing intuitively, we do it all the time, but we're arriving at some sort of definite definition. What is a sensor? What is sensorality? Proof again by this elementality, which is kind of even independent of language, just mass occupying space, producing things that look symmetric or tend to symmetry, and then the actual letters that can occupy those elemental slots. And so, just emphasizing that a sponsorship is just did those ones. Sensorality sponsors censorship. And so we went from censorship with an S to censorship with a C. Again, this finalizing proof is the spelling, which at this point is still kind of conjecture. We're definitely still the conceptual framework is why is censorship spelled with a C or with an S. That's really the entire thing of what we're doing. But have you ever seen a reason as to why something should be spelled some way? We're demonstrating that form. We're answering and providing the why of the form of all of language. Because this is just one definition. This is just solidifying the uniqueness of one chunk of syllability, sensorality, in relation to the rest of ontology. Again, we've already done it. Speciality is special with an ITY. Sensorality is sponsorality. Natural definition, direct iteration, again emphasizing we are getting awfully close. Because sponsorality, again, has the 2 S's just like sensorality. Moving along. Fundamental theorem of logic. Sponsorship is the opposite of censorship with a C. That one was kind of like, again, C or an S there. Again, the proof is the spelling, but natural definition, direct iteration, again emphasizing the conceptualization, the logic, the relationship between those 2 unique words. Sponsorship, censorship, right? They're opposites. Right? If you sponsor something, if you endorse something, you promote it, you get it out there, you say, hey, look at this. If you censor something, you say, hey, don't look at this. I don't support that, I don't sponsor that, therefore I censor that. What is a sponsor to an orator? Is testimony. Sponsorship is endorsement, testimony. What is density to destiny? Is destiny stingy? Direct iteration. Again, we continue to progress our conceptualization. My rights continue to be profoundly violated. Again, I want David Paletta in jail yesterday. I want Tim Doon in jail yesterday. I want anybody that I had exposure to that has a professional licensure issued from a state or issued from a school in prison. They are an ongoing threat to public safety. They've committed substantial crimes, and they do so in a way where there is no responsibility. So we're going to continue to highlight individuals until the law is enforced. I continue to be held against my will in direct violation of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 of the United States Constitution, 5th Amendment, 1st Amendment, Universal Declaration of Human Rights. My property is restricted. It has destroyed my health. It has destroyed every aspect of my life. My life quality is 0. I am genuinely begging for asylum. I am surrounded by people that are too immature to literally, it's just disgusting. It's unacceptable. It's disgusting. I would take a direct, immediate legal action due to the direct environment that I live in. There is no way that I will ever get out of this abuse pattern, because all anybody does is play games all day and compete over nothing. It has destroyed my life. It has destroyed my health. It has ruined every aspect of my existence, and it continues without cessation. Continue just to emphasize that for legal purposes, I have absolutely no expectation anything will change. No one cares about literally anything. That is what I have for right now. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.